Good evening and welcome to Inside Scoop. I'm Rick Morelli. We have a great show for you this evening. Our guest is Mr. Steve Hahn. You may know Steve. He's a school board director in the Hazleton Area School District, as well as he took on a new title as director of the Hazleton Transit Authority. Also joining me today is my co-host, everyone knows from SSP TV, Jeannine Mazurkiwecz, filling in for Dr. Dave Sosar and Mike DeCosmo. Good to see both of you.
Thanks, Rick.
Steve, I appreciate you joining us here.
Sure.
And again, you know, you've been very involved in many different things, and we'll talk a little bit about school board issues. But let's first talk about your new role. You just took on a new job here in the Hazleton City, director of the public transit. And how's that going?
Well, it's a learning experience, certainly. I was very appreciative of the mayor called me, and there was an opening in that position. And I'm, again, very honored that to be considered. It's a great intermodal. The Hazleton Transit operates out of the intermodal building, which is about 2 years old, just not too far from here. We run routes all over the area. There are 8 runs that are out there on a daily basis, Monday through Friday, or Monday through Saturday. We have some buses that operate on Sundays as well. So there are a lot of challenges there.
And you know, as we speak, literally there's an issue going on with the Hazleton Transit as well as with the county in the fact that there's some confusion of a possible merger taking place with the Luzerne County Transit Authority, not with the council, as well as with the city. And as we speak right now, city council's mulling whether they want to rescind a vote that they went into and whether this is a good deal. And the main question for the people of the greater Hazleton area here is, if this merger takes place, will it shortchange lower Luzerne County? That's the main concern that I'm hearing from the officials here in the city. And you want to echo what was...
I think that certainly is the case, that there's an effort that's been going on for a number of years on a PennDOT level, state level, to look at consolidation of services in the transportation area across the entire state.
Yep.
To save some money, to be more efficient in operations, to provide better service. And there initially was a study to look at consolidating all of Luzerne County and all of Lackawanna County. There are 5 different transit operations in those 2 counties. That moved ahead. There was a study that was done. Lackawanna pulled out of it, so then it was revised to looking at just the consolidation of 3 operations in Luzerne County. And I think some of the numbers have to be looked at very, very closely, very carefully. And as you said, I think this is definitely a situation where this has to be looked at very, very carefully by the folks here in southern Luzerne County to make sure this really is the best deal for the residents here and it makes the most sense.
Well, you know, you came in, I'll jump in, Jeannine, for a second, but you came to our meeting the other night because we're going to have a meeting to discuss this. I believe it's going to be on April 17th, where both officials from both the county as well as city could get together. But County Councilman Steve Urban said that, the greater Hazleton area doesn't get shortchanged. And you seem to be a little bit surprised when he made that comment.
I don't know that I was surprised by it, but I'm not sure that I necessarily believe that. You look at a consolidation like this that potentially with Hazleton Public Transit, Luzerne County Transit Authority, and a shared ride operation, and why wouldn't they be looking at moving all the offices for that operation down to Hazleton? No, that they're staying in the northern part of the county. Some of the positions here would be eliminated and moved elsewhere.
Right.
We operate very efficiently. Services are contracted out to 2 local contractors. They hire the bus drivers, so there are 20 people that drive buses here that are employed, that live here locally. If that's taken over by a larger group, all of the drivers up in the northern part of the county are union employees, and I find it hard to believe that you can save money by doing that. Nothing against unions, but it maybe is a more costly operation. So I think there's a lot to look at. Both of these operations are very different in how they're structured,
right.
And maybe they should be revising the other operation to match what Hazleton does. May make more sense.
Being in the area for as long as you have been and looking at gas prices and how many people from this area are senior citizens, how important is busing?
It's very, very important. We carried about 200 and some thousand people last year. It does serve the needs of folks. Again, with gas prices, I think this is going to be more attractive to a lot of folks. For $1.25 to ride basically anywhere in the area, is a very good deal one way. And we do service the over 65. People can ride for free. They just need to come down and fill out some paperwork, and they can ride buses for free. We have other services for ADA and special needs type situations that's almost like a door-to-door service. So.
And when you're looking at, you talked about the taxpayers and also the employees, but the safety of the riders here in Greater Hazleton and offering the hours that are needed, not only during those working hours, but as you talked about, holidays, nights, weekends, the times that we need people here, and also their safety.
We have 2 new buses, 28 passenger buses that are in town now, just arrived, that are going to be put in service next Wednesday. So we're working very hard to update keep the fleet updated. We've got a grant that we're moving ahead with to be able to locate where any bus is at any given time. People will be able to look at, go on a website and be able to see where where all of our buses are and see if they're running on time or running behind schedule at all. I would hope they're not doing that. But
in Hazleton.
Yeah.
And again, I think you made a good point. It is a service. It's a very important service, and people should take advantage of it. It's very important for our area to be able to make sure that we are not shortchanged. And the one thing that county council does is we choose who sits on that authority. And from what I understand, there are 2 people from Lower Luzerne County who should sit on that, who need to sit on that. And my belief is that the city council should come to the county and say, here are the 2 people we want to represent us, rather than we picking and choosing.
And that's a very good idea. It's more of something that deals with the city council, and the mayor would deal with those issues. But if you look at any panel that has 9 members and say that we're going to give you 2 out of those 9, the assumption could be that the other 7 would represent a different element. And even though it's important to have a voice, but it's important to have a voice where you can actually move things along that would be in the best interest here. You could end up sitting at a meeting, or those 2 people watching things be moved from Hazleton to some other place, and you wouldn't want to do that either. So that's where any kind of an agreement needs to clearly spell out what's happening with this intermodal building, what happens with employees here, what happens with the contracted services that we have. Those types of things really have to be addressed, and I don't believe that the mayor felt that had been done to a sufficient degree at this point.
Trust me, I know when you talk about only having 2 voices of 11, when you're, even though you have voice, you're not really, it's very hard to move things along. But moving things along, again, school board member for a number of years, and as we speak, and I know you can't get into details as to the specifics, but let's talk in general. Opened up the paper today, and they found bullets in the school district. And again, we recently, not too long ago, we had former Director of Security, Vinny Zola, on here. We talked about how things have changed over the years. And again, just in general, how things have changed as a board member, and really what needs to be done to be proactive, specifically regarding gangs in our schools and in our area. Your thoughts?
I think all of those things, speaking of Mr. Zola, he was very proactive. And I think some of the things he instituted in our school district were years ahead of what happened in other places. I think that folks came to Hazleton from other districts to look at this as a model to pattern after. And we need to continue that effort. I think the current administration in the school district, Dr. Antonelli and his staff, is very, very proactive. They respond, they're staying ahead of the curve, they're responding. Society has changed, unfortunately, and things are happening. You can't always prevent some of those activities, but it's how you react to it and how you deal with those things. And I think just in this situation, they responded in a great way. The state police did an outstanding job in coming out to make sure that our schools and our buildings are secure, and that there really wasn't anything else involved in this.
Jeannine, as a mother, as someone who works out in the community, and when people see this and read about it, what are you hearing, and what do you think are the feelings out there?
Our job in the news department is not to scare people and have them fearful, but to present the facts. I think of people with this latest ammunition being found on the Hazleton campus. It's really scary as a parent, and it makes me say, what are we doing about security? I mean, I know 1%, the budget is tight, but when you're looking at security versus education, I want my child to be safe, number one, and then their education second. Now, are we safe in school? We're told school is a safe place to be. I recently had to watch a documentary on Columbine. for McCann. It was a in-service. And they showed the steps of a year plan of how the shooters planned out what they were going to do in Columbine. Now, the school district, I feel our school district is proactive when events take place. They are noticing the signs happening, but it's scary as a parent, and you're a parent too. So it's very scary to see what is unfolding in our district. But I think at this time we need to look at security and possibly put more metal detectors in, possibly have more security on campus. I'm sure taxpayers wouldn't be opposed to paying more money for the safety of their children and of their grandchildren.
One of the things with the metal detectors or having to go through some security to get in buildings is a great thing. And that's where there has to be balance. That one of the advantages and the reasons for this campus setup was that people could take courses at the Career Center, they could take courses at the high school.
Right.
There was that ability to offer a great deal of, in terms of curriculum, but that meant that students had to be walking back and forth between buildings.
And then when you have
that's the
schedules
problem,
to get to
right?
class on
You
time.
can't run everybody through a metal detector
Right.
in 9 minutes, so
Maybe a random, and
That's
they're-
one of
right,
the
they know
trade-offs.
there's no easy answer, but if we're looking at the problems that are occurring when these students are outside of the building. So maybe that means not to change classes. I don't know what it means.
We're
but-
looking very seriously with the magnet school
Right.
being set up down in the Butler Township Corporate Center, where Brian Early had mentioned that we're looking at another magnet school possibly within the high school. There has been some discussion and talk about making the Career Center a self-contained type of a structure.
good idea.
And again, those trade-offs, if you're trading a greater sense of security, but maybe you lose the ability to actually go someplace and take a class, we have a great number of opportunities with technology for students, any student, to take virtually any course imaginable they can do online in a lot of situations. We're doing fourth level languages where there may be low populations in those classes we're able to do in an online situation. So we could maybe do more of that, and that could help cut down on the traffic, but it's a very serious problem. The state police work very closely with the district. We do have a state police officer down on the campus. Chief...
Are they doing anything with dogs in the schools and sniffing? I mean, to be able to, for marijuana, for ammunition, and again, what this all stems back to, quite honestly, is we do have gangs in our area and in our schools. And again, we're seeing Senator Yudicek as well,
Right.
working with the
Congressman
Lou Barletta, and there's a task force being put together as we speak. Those are the things that we need to get all the community leaders together to really work. Because again, unfortunately, it's here. And if we could either ignore it or address it, which I think what they're doing, and I think that's where a lot of the stuff is stemming from.
I think again, that's a trade-off in, there are a lot of activities that are taking place that the general public doesn't particularly know about because you don't want to alert things, but there is gang activity, and to sit back and pretend that these things aren't happening really isn't doing justice for everybody either, but you don't want to go to another extreme where you're scaring parents or students. I think if you talk to the students, which I have a number of times, they feel very safe in the high school's buildings. They're aware of people that they just don't hang around with sometimes, but they feel safe. I think the parents have a great concern, and rightly so, and we need to show that we're doing everything possible to prevent that.
And that's good. And I agree with that. And we need to get the community involved as well to be more up to date as to what the gangs are doing. But let's take a quick break, ladies and gentlemen. We're here with Mr. Steve Hahn. You're watching Inside Scoop. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Inside Scoop. We are here with Hazleton School Board Director, Mr. Steve Hahn, as well as Director of the Hazleton Public Transit. Again, segueing over to the school district, Steve, for years, one of the toughest jobs being on the school board, as I know, is dealing with budgets. And one of the things each and every year we're dealing with, and even with the county, is how much money is going towards libraries. And I did ask Mr. Ryan Miller to come on the show. He couldn't make it, but I did mention that I do want to talk a little bit about this vote that's going to take place in April for the public as to whether they want to support paying separately for the libraries. And I really want to go into a little bit so the public knows what this vote is. You're seeing signs pop up, support our libraries. And correct me if I'm wrong, what this means is if the public votes for this, obviously they're going to support an extra tax. From what I read, it's about on a $100,000 home, $18, $19 extra they'll pay, supporting the libraries. If it doesn't pass, it doesn't mean the libraries go away. It just the burden goes back on the school districts, also a little bit on the counties as well. Am I right on that?
Right.
Okay. I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
One of the difficulties that I've seen is that the school district imposes a property tax, and part of that property tax is funding for the public library. It's just not specifically designated that way. So as part of our budget, $650,000, $700,000 is what typically ends up being approved to be passed on to the public library. That flows, that we had cuts in state funding last year for other activities. So there were some school board members that were interested in eliminating the allocation to the library completely. 50% over 50% of the money that the library has to operate on comes from the school district currently.
And that, how much approximately a year out of the budget? Your budget's about $120 million. How much goes into for the local libraries?
$670,000
Okay.
roughly.
Has a study or anything been done to see how many people actually go into the library and utilize the resources in the building? Because now with technology, don't most people, I mean, how much have we seen a decrease in the use of our public libraries?
I think where our public library system is a little bit different than some other ones is that we think of the library somewhat as the main building downtown.
Okay.
But the real strength of this library system is they have a branch in the McAdoo School, they have a branch in Freeland, the Valley branch, and Nuremberg.
Okay.
And this supports all of those branches. Cunningham, I know for one, and I'm not sure any of the other branches, but Cunningham has a very, very active reading program all year round. And I can't tell you how many parents I've run across that my child learned to read at the Valley Branch Library. And they have a lot of programs down there. It's very, if they lost funding, the branches would be the first place that would lose
Well, they would
out.
merge. And, you know, it goes back to the conversation we had earlier with the transit, and that's what we're seeing with a lot of, we've seen it with hospitals, we've seen it with schools years ago. It's consolidation. And the debate that will be out there is, again, we have a high percentage of senior citizens who most may or may not use. We have technology that's changing. We have, you know, the Barnes & Noble's franchises with all the books. We have technology, we have the internet, and the question is how much is technology affecting the local branches? And I think, and what I'm getting at is, I think that's the debate that will be debated for this vote come April.
But if you go into the main branch of the public library or any of the branches and say, I'm doing a paper on such and such, I'm looking for such and such, anybody can Google something, but what is the quality of the response that you get from that? And does that compare to being able to go to someone who's been trained, has a master's degree in research that's working there, that will help you find the materials that you need to find?
But how many people are doing that? Because as an instructor at Kings and McCann, most of my students, when it comes to the research, they're using technology or they're not using the libraries. Now, I'm just saying the other side of it is it depends on, you know, where you are in technology, what generation is your education. And in this area, libraries might be more important because, again, of the population being an older population.
Well, and we have a lot of newcomers also that are English, it maybe isn't their first language, that there are lots of reading programs in the public libraries that are concerned parents, helps with one, and they do reading programs. There, a lot of folks go into the library, any of the branches, and spend an hour in there and see how many people come in and out of the place. And a lot of people don't have access to computers. It's hard to believe, but they don't, and the library does provide that for a lot of folks. It's their link to connecting into some of these things.
But the reality will be is, again, if the funding, if it's not there, it's not that the libraries will go away. Some will go away. They'll be consolidated. So it's not the fact that you probably won't have a library to go to, just that you may have to go drive from Cunningham to Hazleton to go to a library.
And I think that if people had to do that, my own opinion is that would be a loss to those communities to lose those branches. The public library maybe needs to do a little better job of getting out to the public what they actually offer and why you need to come in there.
Yep.
I couldn't believe the number of people that are in there just to use copy machines and to read the newspapers, that you can look at some things online, but it's not the same thing as reading a newspaper or picking up a magazine. And a lot of them are very limited as far as what you can see in them.
Well, the public will have the final say on this in April, and they're going to be, it's now in the hands of the voters to decide whether they want to support or put it back in the
Now,
hands
one of the things that I would
officials.
say, just from my own position, is that if this is adding a tax of 0.1879 mils in Luzerne County, I support that. I think people should vote yes for that. But I'm also going to support and only will support a school tax that is reduced by that same amount.
Right.
I'm not looking at this as a tax increase
Well,
for anybody.
that's what some people may
It
say,
needs to-
because
if
that
we're gonna-
670,000 you could use elsewhere. So are you looking to
How
take
much is that money per household, approximately, when you're looking at
As he mentioned, if you have a property in Luzerne County that's assessed at $100,000, that's $18 would go to the library. If it's a $200,000 home, you're looking at $36.
The average home is probably between $60,000 and $80,000.
But some people may also say, well, if that passes, the school district has an extra 670,000.
That they
Maybe you
should
could
be
use that
using on
towards security. So
And
something
people
that
could
say
support that, but that would end up being a tax increase for the school district, not for the libraries.
Well,
But
it's
I
not
think
a tax,
this
but
gives.
it's where the money goes. It's again, I don't think people mind paying taxes.
Right.
They hate when they pay tax and they don't
They
see
get
where the
anything
money is
for it.
going for, and so forth. But changing, we only have less than 4 minutes left. Two things I want to talk to you within this time. I want to quick thoughts on the building projects, Magnet School, Hayfie. From what I understand, the next year's budget, you're going to be adding on the Magnet School, the following year, Hayfie. And then I want to quickly talk to you about the Castle Auditorium.
Okay.
So what could you tell us regarding the building plan, thoughts, Magnet School?
Quite honestly think that, we struggled for a number of years, as you well know, trying to determine what we need to do. We saw the student population increasing over the years. We have 28 classrooms worth of trailers, or 28 classrooms of students in trailers right now is not a good situation. People are having to leave the buildings and go out there. And we need an elementary school, basically. That's almost the equivalent of an elementary school.
Is where the elementary kids will go.
And the reason for that was that if there's students, high school students there that had to go over to the Career Center, it's quite a distance. It doesn't seem like it is, but that's a long distance and you might have to extend the time. The other thing was, if you had elementary students in that campus itself, it wasn't a situation that any of us liked. So with Hayfie being an elementary school, the busing into that school, the traffic into the school will come from a completely different direction. So it will not intermingle with the high school campus per se. So I think it's
eliminating that traffic of outside the school as much as possible might be the key to a safer campus.
We hope so, and I think the
I don't
trend.
think you're going to eliminate. You're going to actually have more transportation. I mean, really, it's not going to be any different than when Bishop Hayfie was open. I mean, you're still going to have the same amount of
But they
buses
won't
and
be-
But they're not going to
drop-
be on that same street, that side. We're going to have
Right.
everybody on the southern side of the school. And I think in the long run, this was an excellent plan. Not everybody was satisfied with it as it moved along, but this gives us the space for our students in actual buildings
And getting
at a
rid of that
very, very,
overcrowding
very
a
low
little
cost.
bit?
We got these two buildings for $10 million.
But here's where the major cost comes in, as you know, it's funding with teachers. And here's my concern, I'll be honest, is you guys are breaking this up in two different sections. One, Magnet School, next year, Hayfie. We've all seen projects go over. We know that, and it's no one's fault, it's just the way things happen, unfortunately. But if the funding goes up with the Magnet School and it goes over, will that cut what goes into Hayfie the following year? Because again, borrowing the money to pay for the schools is easy. That's over a 30-year budget. But again, funding it with revenue, with new teachers, new administrators, transportation, that's the question. And that's really where, impacts the
I
taxpayers.
think that with the Magnet School, there are some concepts and techniques, with technology and some of the things. I think we'll be able to operate that school at as low a cost as possible. We do need more teachers there. You do have to expand that. There are administrators, there are cleaning staff, all of those parts and pieces that go with owning a building that have to be picked up on, and it's going to be a challenge to figure out how we do that and stay within the budgets.
Tough decisions. We'll be following one last minute. The Castle. You got some shows coming up. How are things going there?
Yeah, the Wilsey Center at the Castle on 9th and Wyoming on April 14th is Jason Bishop is an illusionist. It's about an hour and a half long show, suitable for children and adults, and that should be pretty exciting. Then on April 28th, which is a Saturday at 7 o'clock, Seussical the Musical is coming here from New York City.
Nice.
And that should be another exciting thing. We've gotten a great response from local companies that are sponsoring, entering as sponsors. That helps purchase tickets, which are going to be given out in some cases to people that maybe wouldn't be able to afford to go to shows like that.
Good.
So we're looking forward to it. Anybody
Good
just
news.
wilseycenter.org, and you can go online and buy tickets.
Well, you guys have worked very hard, and wish you the best, and hopefully we'll continue to see some good shows. So again, unfortunately we're out of time, Steve. Thank you for joining us.
Okay.
Wish you the best of luck with your new endeavor. We'll be talking. And Jeannine, thank you for filling
always a
in.
pleasure.
Hopefully David might get back here soon, you know, the
guys.
slackers. And we want to thank all of you for joining us here on Inside Scoop. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a great evening.